Hello and welcome back to Sprite Guard Plays Road Not Taken. Today's episode is going to be pretty heavily edited. It ended up being about 45 minutes long and with the commentary corrupted when I recorded this, so we're going to be having to go back over it. The first thing I wanted to talk about was, in the last few episodes, I've been a little bit disappointed with how I've been interacting with people. I feel like I've been a little bit more judgmental than I really want to be. I've kind of not been the person that I see myself as. And that's one of the great things about games. I've talked in the past about using games as a laboratory for the emotions, as a way to understand ourselves better. Mostly, I've looked at that in terms of dealing with salt and rage and frustration and anger, looking at those emotions and trying to reframe the situations that those bring up. But this game has given me an opportunity to look at some different emotions and look at the way that I relate to people and the way that I think about the world, and continue to question, is this who I want to be? Is this how I want to interact with people? So the first thing we're going to do today is we're going to try and repair our relationship with Naomi. I still want to see if we can maintain good relationships with both Naomi and Maya. I don't want to pick between them. Maybe I can be a bridge between them. So let's talk to her right now, and right away it's just asking us what to do. We'll share our rice, because she has really liked that in the past. Oh, my favorite dish is tree squirrel curry slathered over fresh rice. Squirrel fat, that's the yummy key. So she's a bit happier, but still looking quite sad. So we'll have to see what we can do in the future to cheer her up. But we'll get started on this, and I'm just going to do a highlight because this ended up being a very long and somewhat disastrous episode. So we're going to see a lot of new things, and right away we're actually going to see a couple of new items. So right here we have these hedges, and we have these blue stones. This sign says, "Make fire with 2 wood, cook wild animals for sustenance." This looks like the same material as the bear statue. On the bottom you see an engraved compass with bold markings indicating you should avoid the northeast directions. I don't know what that means yet, but these blue stones end up factoring pretty heavily in this episode. So to begin with, we'll use these hedges to open a way. And so here we have a couple of new elements that we're going to be facing. One is the red and blue stones, and the other is this child in the hood, the child in the black hood. So here we go. An iridescent stone that shimmers reddish tones. You swear you've seen this stone change color when you throw it. So yeah, that's going to be a really big deal here, and we can actually throw those 2 stones, and they both change color, red to blue, blue to red. So you can see that this child with the black hood is a precocious child, and she's going to follow us around. Sometimes that's really useful, sometimes that's really unhelpful, and she will actually follow us from a couple of spaces away, so we're going to have a difficult time navigating around her. We did run into Maya again after a little bit of shuffling. I stay in the woods to care for the rabbits. So we can share our berries with her. Isn't it odd that a fruit is so valuable? Men kill for it down south. So we've gained a little bit of standing with her. Hopefully that doesn't hurt our relationship with Naomi too much. In the next room, there was a bunch of new stuff, including this cutscene, where this ghost left a doll in the corner. Not sure what that was about. I ended up going back to the start and into this next room immediately to the right of the start, where we had a crow. The crow looks greedily at the forest treasures. A greedy crow that steals pretty baubles and hides them away. And so I started out just trying to shuffle things around. I wanted to make these molten spirits into an axe, and I of course wanted to pay the shrine to save us from death. That always seems like a wise thing, and then I just started shuffling these guys around, still, getting used to the mechanics, still not completely sure how exactly to move things around most efficiently, but I figured out that I could do this in a couple of steps. If I moved that, and then that, and then that, I could make the axe. And so the first thing that I did was I tried using the axe on the wolf. And that ended up not really working. So I decided to go over to the shrine. The shrine was kind of in the way of a lot of things, so I thought maybe I could move it, but in fact I could not. The shrine is humming. It somehow makes you feel both relieved and uncomfortable. So then I started moving the rocks around, trying to figure out what it was that made them change color. Was it throwing them? And then I noticed there that the crow actually made the hedge disappear. So I figured out that if I throw them in certain circumstances, they would change color. And then I went back over here, and I actually stepped onto the Molten Spirit, which I didn't notice at the time did 10 damage. So that's something to avoid. And so I kept trying to drop this and throw it, and I think it has to actually, I have to throw it over some distance in order to make it change color. And so I started kind of shuffling the stuff around. It seems like they don't change color when they go through a doorway. And I was really not sure what I was supposed to be doing. Kept making it change colors. And then finally there I got it. I figured it out. And I managed to open up a couple of doors. And then I tried to pick up that axe, but the wolf was not going to let me near it. And so I decided to see if I could move it around someplace and get it into the next area, see if that would be useful to us. While I was shuffling the axe around, I made a pretty big discovery that if you throw an axe at a ninja bear, it creates an apple. And that's really useful in two different ways, because ninja bears are really annoying and apples are really useful. So as soon as I discovered this, I, of course, started trying to figure out how to throw the axe at every ninja bear and see if I can turn them all into apples, because I need the energy, and I also would like to get rid of the bears. And there we go. That managed to get all of them. The next thing I did was I went and tried to get this rabbit that I had trapped earlier on. And it took me a while to kind of figure out how to do that, figure out how to make a path to it that it couldn't escape through. And there we go. Managed to grab it, and let's check out what it says. Rabbits are a sign of fertility. Many see them as a replacement for lost children. Well, that's a little bit horrifying, but I guess good for us. Oh, hey, and a coin. So it took me a moment to notice, but we actually got a journal entry for the copper. Money is a life goal, but then what? Do you hoard it, spend it, or give it away? Well, I'm more the type to give it away. Over here there was a guy with an exclamation point, so I went to talk to him. Brent grins. What a hero. I ignore the Rugrats myself. I could rescue them, but it builds character to taste the raw wonders of wilderness survival. But hey, you showed gumption. He hands you an oil-stained wrapper. And he's given us a berry. Now, I was pretty shocked by this, and I decided that I didn't really want to interact with him, just because I was kind of reeling from what he'd said and how naive he seemed. And it kind of brought up some stuff that I had, have been dealing with all my life. That, I talked at the beginning of this episode about wanting to be less judgmental, and this guy's really challenging me because, he seems kind of to not understand that these kids don't know how to survive out here. They're not going to make it out on their own. And then, of course, as I was doing this, a kraken appeared. And it says, you wish to be one with the tentacles. Forest kraken. The northwestern forest kraken, a stunning sight. And this thing actually ended up being a pretty big nemesis throughout this run, and we'll be seeing that in the near future. pretty shortly after I got back to shuffling children around, we started seeing these holes appearing in the ground, and I actually got pretty frustrated and confused right here, not being able to move that one in the red hood before I noticed that there was that hole, and this tentacle came up, and it does 5 damage, which I was pretty shocked by. I came back over here because there was one more child, and I also wanted to see if I could make some honey, and see if there was anything else that I could do here. I also wanted to see if I could touch one of these deer, and so I started shuffling things around, trying to make room to make things happen, but here's where the tentacles started to really get out of control, and eventually, I decided I could get to that deer. The adorable deer seems frightened of you. The graceful deer makes the room feel brighter. So we don't know what we can do with those yet, but we've added them to our journal at least. And so now the number of tentacles on screen keeps increasing. And that was something that I kind of wasn't noticing at that point. And so I just continued trying to shuffle around these beehives, trying to make some honey. But, here's where I started to notice that the tentacles were getting really out of control. And I started trying to move around them, trying to get things done, but I ended up being trapped by them, and I found them incredibly frustrating. And then I figured out if you throw them, you can break them, but you have to give up 5 energy unless they spawn right next to you. I finally managed to make some honey and return some kids and got up to 97 health, so I thought I was doing pretty well, but then I came down here, and I saw there was the snow, I saw there were these weeds, I decided to step on one. This vile weed grows at a prodigious rate. The lesser vine grows quickly, but can be stepped on if it gets in your way. And so I decided to play around with that, see how that worked, and I started stepping on these. Now, what I didn't realize is that stepping on the vine costs 1 health, and stepping through the blizzard costs 1 health. So I ended up burning a lot of health doing this, just trying to clear things out so that I could hopefully get to that kid. And it took me a while to kind of figure out what was going on and realize that I was on a very short clock at this point. And so I tried to start figuring out how to get these rocks away and get to that kid using as little energy as possible, and I could see that I wasn't going to be able to do it without spending any energy. And then I noticed that the weed would sometimes come back into itself, and I didn't really know what was going on there, but my main focus was just on getting these rocks cleared away and not dying. And I managed to do it, and I don't know if that was the best way to do it, but we got the kid out, and so I started trying to figure out how to get the kid where I needed it, and started kind of panicking a little bit here. And I started looking at my menu, looking at my inventory. I realized that I had very little time to get out of here and not a lot of options for how to do that. And I was thinking, do I need to teleport to the mayor? Do I need to use something from my inventory? And then that vine grew, and I saw that I was able to get the kid out of there without expending any more energy carrying it. But now I had 11 energy, and I had to get the kid out without stepping near any of these tentacles. And I knew that that was going to require a lot of shuffling around, a lot of pacing. I didn't have a great way of dealing with the tentacles. I think I have some ideas now about better ways of dealing with the tentacles if we encounter them again. But at the time, I was just really unsure what to do. And then I came in here and I was like, okay, am I going to be able to get this kid out of here without expending any energy? And it took me some kind of looking around and waiting around, but I figured out I could get behind it, and then that bear very kindly popped up exactly where I needed him. Saving that kid got me a little extra energy, and so I made it into this room where I saw another ghost cutscene with that backpack. And I kind of despaired. It took a little energy to get into this room, and so when I found out that I wasn't going to find any children here, I decided to see if I could chase down this rabbit and check out this backpack and see if that gave me anything. A child's backpack likely abandoned for several seasons. Such a small bag made for someone tiny. It feels cold and glows with a ghostly light. So we're still not sure what we can do with that. But I saw that I wasn't going to be able to get through the door here very easily. And so I started shuffling around these spirits, trying to make room to move those rocks around. But then I accidentally actually stepped on a molten spirit, which does 10 damage. And I realized that I had to just get out of there and abandon the last child, because there was no way I was going to be able to save them with only 9 health. And that was really disappointing, especially when I came back here and this kid said, "Where's my sister?" That was a little heartbreaking. Give up and abandon remaining children? Well, we have to do it. My unacknowledged love child didn't make it back, but you did your job otherwise. So we get 8 more copper and a heavy heart. So let's head back to town and talk to people. A year passes, 11 years till retirement. We only get 4 energy next year, and so we're going to be in a lot of trouble. You seem to be managing well. I won't be afraid to ask for your help with really dangerous situations. And so we've unlocked a hard mode. So I'm going to check it out, but we're not actually going to do it this time. I saw a gray wall sweeping through. Silence came upon the land. The doctor hits us quickly in the throat with a tiny hammer. Reflexes, check. You've got at least 11 years in you. And then over here we had Dave. There are things way worse than being a professional funeral singer. Mostly my clients are too caught up in mourning to care. It's a dreamer's dream, really. He smiles brightly. Your job seems much harder. Why do you do it? Let's give him some berries. There we go. Just the smell of this berry reminds me of better times. Dave gives you a hug. All right. You and Dave are now friends. He whispers something in your ear. So you've got a couple more secrets. Ghost Girl, the soul of a child trying to go home. Her mother still waits for her. And it's a bone plus 2 molten spirits plus 2 light spirits. A jar of honey we can get now with a ninja bear and a spear, which I don't think we've seen a spear yet, so that's something we will have to keep an eye out for. Let's talk to Naomi. Why do you keep talking to me? She frowns. I'm a bit of a loner. I'm okay with that. My life is private. Private. She cocks her head to one side. You are kind of slow, aren't you? Well, we can't make her happy, so let's just share a rabbit with her. Sometimes I think folks around here just breed rabbits to take their minds off the children. And you and Naomi are now friends. You notice this girl seems to like you. We'll begin the next mission with plus 10 energy, and boy do we need it. Alright, so we're patching that up. Poor people spend their money on rabbits. This is why they are poor. Oh boy, that's a whole other thing to unpack. Boy, that's, what do I even say about that? It's a really common kind of rationalization about poverty that, it's just bad spending choices, and you can get into the whole discussion about, what Terry Pratchett called Boots theory about, I think people have called it the poor tax of, when you can't afford to do things in a sustainable way, you have to spend more money over the long term. And, looking at the social structures that create that, and I really don't think it comes down to anything as simple as this is why they are poor. He nods knowingly. So the only thing we can do is share copper, which I think I want to hold off on for now. I want to kind of take some time to figure out what relationship do we actually want to have with this guy, and I want to talk to the others, especially Fleur. A lot of villagers are celebrating the kids coming back. Okay, not all of them, but some of them. It is like we are coming together. We can make the world a better place. We can help each other. And she's given us some more coin. And, yeah, sure, let's share our copper, since that's the only thing we can do. You talk about many things, then Fleur says, money makes me happy. If nothing else is true, at least that is. You and Fleur are now friends. And, that's a whole other thing to think about, because, you know, the conventional wisdom is money doesn't make you happy, but I think when you don't have a ton of options, money can give you the kinds of options that you need to be happy. And I think that a lot of stuff that we talk about that, you know, that doesn't make people happy, like money, things, validation, I think that they can give you the ability, the power, the flexibility, the confidence that you need to be happy, even if they don't make you happy by themselves. So that's where I'm going to leave it off. This ended up being a very difficult episode to record, and I don't know how I'm going to handle this series in the future, but we'll see. We'll take it one day at a time, and until then, thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.